welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, I hope you will consider hitting the subscribe button to join our crafty little family. For today's video, I'm going to be sharing a revisit and remake project. So what I hope to do with these style of videos is to find a project that I have created in the past that still inspires me, but find a way to make some subtle changes so that it freshens up and makes the project new again. And also it will help me to get through some of my stash papers. So this will be a revisit and remake card. So stick around and we'll make this together. Okay, so here is the card I'm inspired by for this revisit and remake challenge. We're using the beautiful Cartabella collection. And so the one thing that's important to me for this kind of challenge is that I incorporate all of the elements from the original into the new card, but I want to look at it in a different way so that I'm slightly altering perhaps the orientation or the flowers or certain elements, but I want to make sure that all of them are included. So for today's project, this is going to be my inspiration. I'm going to be using the Authentique Stitches collection. Now this was from 2018, so it's not too far back in the stash, but I did want to think of a way to get through more of it. So I'm gonna use the 6x6 paper pad. I just really like the compact patterns and I think they work really well for this style card because I'm gonna be layering a lot of different patterns on top of each other. I did use one of the 12x12 pattern papers to get my focal image, but basically all of this card is coming from this one 6x6 paper pad. So like in the original card, I am going to be using this Lotus Oval die. I picked this up from Gina Marie Designs and they have this in a square and a circle as well, so there's a lot of options. I just like this little bit different shape for my focal image. I used the larger shape, the big die, to cut out white cardstock, and that becomes my doily for the background. And then it also came with this small oval which fits in here perfectly. What I wanted to do was cut my focal image with this, and then I just laid my large die on my cardstock so that I could trace around here. That way I'm going to have a little bit of a border of that solid cardstock between patterns so that it would make sure and look a little bit more finished and keep the patterns from looking busy. So here's my card base, and I'm just using a 6x6 square card, and I did finish the inside with that pretty pattern as well. I'll come back in later and add a section for a sentiment to be added, but I can work with this for now. So what I want to do is open it up flat here so I can work on it. And like I have on the inside, I'm putting that pretty check on the outside. It has a dove gray border. I'm using that throughout for a consistent look, and I really love this blue. It's kind of a cornflower or a country blue, and so it's a little bit vintagey but also a little bit shabby chic. So this is going to be the base, and what I want to do is add my next layer with a little bit of spacer so that I can start to add the dimension. So I've cut my craft foam to the shape. I've put a layer of my double-sided adhesive. I'm coming back in with my Tombow just for a little extra security, and then I'll add this to the back of this next section. So this will be the raised area, and I'll just pull that tape from the back and then press it into place right in the center. You can see how well that gray cardstock is going to work with these vintagey colors. Okay, so it really does look a lot like the inspiration project now. Here is where I'm going to change things up because my focal image has a profile orientation rather than a landscape. I'm going to go ahead and change the orientation of the card as well. So rather than putting my secondary pattern on the bottom, I'm moving it to the side, and it goes so well with my sewing theme. Now is when I'm gonna bring in that pretty die cut doily, the Lotus Oval, and I'm just going to basically center that as best I can. Now the original card had some labels and some text, and so what I did was I fussy cut this from that same sheet of 12 by 12 paper from the collection, and so I'm able to use this as different elements. And so what I want to do is just sort of aim this toward the bottom, and I'm going to hold my focal image in place just temporarily so that I can make sure I'm getting it positioned right where I want it. I'm going to cover up a fair bit of that word so that it just reads as typography in the background, and it will be easy to get square because of that measuring tape pattern in the back. So I'll just go ahead and prop this on now. I put some more spacers under here. Just go ahead and build some more dimension, and you can see now how I have used that cardstock as a border around this, and it makes it look a little bit nicer and more finished. So just put that right in the center. This will be a beautiful focal image with my vintage sewing theme, like a pattern envelope that you would get if you were sewing. This is going to go right up in the top corner here. I just want to make sure to utilize that border that's already in place. Okay, so here is another change from my original. I just added a little bit of extra foliage here and a little bit of netting and some extra smaller flowers to fill in this corner. And I've also added a secondary bow. This is my wrinkle ribbon from Really Reasonable Ribbon. I think it matches perfectly and it helps to fill this corner. This flower on top is also from Really Reasonable Ribbon. This is the Lotus Flower, and when I get these, I pull off the layers and I remove the center because they come with a yellow center, and although that probably is accurate to flowers, I don't really know a lot about flowers, but yellow is not going to look like it coordinates with this card. So I just switched it out for this one. This is a gray, and they come from Really Reasonable Ribbon as well. And so I can get this to coordinate really well. So I'm just gonna arrange this here closer to the bottom so we don't cover up too much of that girl. Okay, so that is there anchored on the bottom. So like in the original, I do have some charms to add. This time they're in a sewing theme. I've got a scissor here and a Singer sewing machine, like a vintage style. And this is nice because they are at very different lengths. So this is gonna really fill in this corner very well. And I'm just going to hold them in place. I tied them together so that I knew I could get the spacing correct. And then cover it with this bow. I've used the same pretty pink wrinkle ribbon topped with a burlap string, loopy bow, and then a vintage button for the top. I'll just go ahead and use that to cover the cut ends of the string I used for my charms. And last but not least, I have some more of these vintage buttons. Just like in the original, I want to add a cluster of 3, and rather than putting them in this corner, I'm gonna put them up here at the top because that measuring tape pattern is pretty busy and I don't want them to get lost in the corner here on that pattern. So I'll just add those with my hot glue again. And that is all for my revisit and remake sewing themed card for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave me a comment and a big thumbs up. You can find links in the description for all our social media sites as well as for Really Reasonable Ribbon for these trims. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.